you are really a hidden gem, Nero. I think
Thank you.
you really do care about your clients and take,
Hmm.
you have their interest at heart. That's the most important thing. And I would encourage anyone out there who's, trying to invest in property just like I was, to reach out to Nero.
Hello, everyone. It's Niro here, and welcome to another episode of the Property Investing Australia podcast. I'm really excited for this episode because we've got another very special guest on the call, Peter Vititam. He's actually a client of Investment Rise, and more importantly, what I think you'll get from this episode is his journey from someone who initially thought property investing was a good idea to then thinking, he could do all the research, read all the books, do it all on his own, to then deciding to look for a buyer's agent, and then we can talk about his experience with Investment Rise as well. But first of all, welcome to the show, Peter.
Thank you, Nero. Well said. Thank you for the introduction.
No, my pleasure. As I said, it's great to have you here. And so I'd love to, as I just said, walk you through your journey, because I know many people who listen and watch these episodes are in a very similar situation to you. So they're thinking about investing in property, and they're not even sure where to begin. So let me ask you, what motivated you to start looking to buy an investment property? Where was that spark?
Well, the spark came when I turned 30 years old.
Okay.
And I kind of looked back to my life and I thought, I've been working really hard for the past 10 years or so. And looking into the future, this is not something that I want to continue doing into my 40s and 50s.
Okay.
So I started doing research on, what type of things can I invest in? And I
Mm-hmm.
came across property.
Yep.
Because I've heard many people say, why don't you invest in property? That's going to give you a passive income that you can live off when you retire.
Mm-hmm.
At that stage, I was really, really skeptical because I thought, man, how does that work? I don't think you can do that. It's impossible to, it's just to live off property. And
Mm.
that's when I started reading lots of books and listened to lots and lots of podcasts. And
Mm-hmm.
they had one voice, and that was, it was possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what motivated me to start this journey was, I don't want to be working this hard when I reach my 40s and 50s. I want to spend more time with my family. So
Oh,
basically,
absolutely.
I just wanted more time.
Yeah, and I think for yourself, starting at 30, still very very young. I know you may not agree with that, but certainly still very very young in terms of getting started on the property investing journey. And so, okay, so you decide, yep, you want to invest in property. The
Yep.
goal is so that okay, you might be happy doing what you're doing right now, but what does the future hold, and how do you start putting in steps right now to have more financial choices in 10, 15 years time, whatever the case happens to be. So look, that's a great motivation. I mean, would you mind sharing with the audience, what do you do for work? Peter, I know you're based up in Brisbane, but what do you do?
Yep. So I am an English teacher. I
Mm-hmm.
teach students who I basically teach international students who come to Australia and wishes to take their further studies in university.
Mm-hmm.
So I teach English 5 days a week.
Yep.
Um, and, a lot of people say teaching is not, it's not a difficult job. But in my opinion, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it.
Sure.
So even though I do love what I do, I love
Mm-hmm.
teaching. I love helping other people, just like you, Nero.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, eventually, when I have my own family, I want to start doing less and less and less,
Look,
if possible.
absolutely, and I think that's a very important point. Is that you love what you do right now,
Mm.
so therefore this, and it was very clear that you're not looking to get rich quick. This is not but make $1 million tomorrow. This is about sort of putting in solid steps and solid foundations right now to set up the future. When you get there. So here we are. You're a teacher, English teacher, teaching overseas students. You're starting to say, okay, how do I set myself up for the future? You start looking at property, and you start reading books. you start listening to podcasts, you realize what's possible. But then what then stopped you from trying to do it on your own and find a property on your own? Because, knowing you like I do, you're a very determined guy. You definitely work hard. You are someone who can make the time where it's needed. So what sort of stopped you from trying to do it on your own? Or did you even start that process and find out there was a few issues along the way?
Let me just start off by saying that there was a period of time where I thought I could do everything myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Initially, I had set a plan, for 6 months. 6 months, I'm going to study property. That's all I
Okay.
was going to do. I was going to read on books, listen to podcasts. 6 months was my time frame. When
Mm-hmm.
that 6 months finished, I hadn't even reached, I only reached the surface of property
Mm-hmm.
investment. I mean, even though I read lots of books, listened to lots of podcasts, knowing about property investing and actually investing in property are two different things. There's this,
Okay, so can you sort of build on that, because I think that's an important part. Knowing about property investing
Mm.
and doing the actual investing are two different things. So explain what you mean by that a bit more, please.
Yep. So I was reading lots of books on, why you would invest, how you would invest. Um, but those podcasts and those books, they don't really dive into the fine details of
Mm-hmm.
how to approach each and every step.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned is that at every step of the way, there are so many hurdles that you have to get over, and the books and podcasts don't really cover that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, if I'm gonna do this, I want to do it right. I don't want to make
Yep.
a mistake because property investment is you need a lot of capital
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
invest. So um, I
Yes.
I didn't want to make a mistake at any of the steps because I know that if you make one mistake, that could affect your whole property portfolio.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
even though the books and the podcasts are very useful for you to learn about property investment, it doesn't actually explain the fine details of each and every step.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think with property, and not only is it a large capital outlay, whether you're looking for property at 400,000 or whether you're looking at $2 million, it's still a lot of money. Uh,
Yep.
and the other thing is, property is not a very liquid asset, so
Mm,
you can't buy it today, say, oh, I got it wrong, sell it tomorrow and walk away,
mm,
right?
mm,
And also, there's a lot of costs associated with buying the property, like stamp duty, etc., or selling costs, real estate fees, etc. So yes, you really want to make sure that you get this right. And so it seems like did you begin doing any kind of research, trying to do it on your own? Yeah, share a bit more about that if you don't mind.
Yep, I did. So, after 6 months, when I've done my research on property investment, when I felt confident that I know enough to invest,
Mm-hmm.
I started to look at properties within Brisbane, which is where I live. Because at
Yep.
that stage, I wasn't really thinking about uh, other states. I was just thinking
Yep.
about areas where I live because I felt comfortable with that.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I started to, on the weekends, I would drive to different areas of Brisbane and to see, you know, um, how the people were living there, what kind of
Mm-hmm.
demographics in those areas. And what I found was it took a lot of time, took a lot of effort to do research because I was looking for a
Mm-hmm.
property that I thought would over time grow.
Mm.
So I was aiming for areas that I thought, wow, this is such a nice area to live. In 10 years' time, this will grow. I was looking at the infrastructure. And then I actually came across an area where I thought was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was actually a property that has not been built yet. So basically, it was just land.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
And
So share a bit more. Yes, please.
and at that point, I thought, wow, this would make a great investment because it was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But just buying land what was much cheaper than buying an existing property. So I thought, wow,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look more into this. I'm going to contact the developer and have a chat with
Mm-hmm.
him and see what he says.
Mm.
And at that stage, I felt confident. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, I'm doing the right thing. After six
Mm.
months of research, I felt really confident.
Okay.
And the more I talked to him, the more I felt, wow, I'm going into the right path.
Okay.
But um, the the thing that really stopped me there was that I just didn't know how to progress there. I mean, uh, everything that I've learned from the podcast and the books I was doing, but there was just
Yes.
small details like, so how do I approach the negotiation? How do I get the best price? How do I know that I was gonna get a good return? How do I know if I was gonna get renters? How do I know how long the construction is gonna take? All these questions started to
Yeah.
appear, and it didn't occur to me when I was reading the books and podcasts. Only when you actually do it, you actually know what problems and what hurdles you need to get over.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. So then, what sort of stopped you from moving ahead with that particular land and building on it, etc.?
So once I found out that I had all these questions that I couldn't answer, I did more research.
Hmm.
And then I found out that the research suggests that you shouldn't invest in off-plan properties.
Okay. And what reasons did the research offer for that?
Let me recall my memory. So, firstly, there's a huge risk in investing in off-plan because you never know when the construction is going to be done. Even though
Yep.
you initially have the your home loan from the bank now,
Yes.
in 2 or 3 years time that might change, the situation might change, and
Yes.
all of a sudden your income might reduce, or you might have other commitments, and so the bank might refuse your home loan in 2 years time. So
Correct.
lots
Correct.
lots
Yes.
lots of things can
Lots of risks. Absolutely. So, all right. So you've gone down the path of an off the plan property, done lots of research, probably had lots and lots of conversations, and sounds like you've spoken to the developer or anyone who's already had a stake in the game in terms of you getting that property because they were going to make a commission as
mm,
opposed to seeing if it's right for you, right? And so you've gone through the process, and then you've said, okay, this isn't right for me. Where do you go next?
so I started to ask myself, how much more time do I actually want to invest in this?
Mm.
And the answer was, I really wanted to do this, but I can't do this alone. I mean, there's
Okay.
so many unanswered questions. So that's when
Yes.
I decided, okay, I need some help.
Gotcha. Okay. And so, when you were looking around at properties and everything else, just to go back a bit, you said you were looking at areas that you liked, that
Mm.
you thought would go up in value. So it seems like you were sort of making a decision just kind of based on a bit of gut feel, emotional, how you felt with it, almost guessing or winging it to a certain degree. Would that be fair to say?
That would be fair because I told my parents about it, and my parents said, okay, good, investing in property is a good idea. Why don't you look somewhere nearby? So I kind of listened to my friends and family as well.
Yeah, gotcha. Because yes, I mean, buying a property is a big decision. So I see so many, people trying to buy close to where they live because it's comfortable. There's a lot of fear driving those decisions, and so you've gone down that path, seen that okay, it may not be right for you. First of all, because you're not sure what type of property to buy, and secondly, it seems like despite all of your reading and everything else, listening and the time you invested into studying property investing, you still weren't sure how to work out if an area was a good area to buy in from a capital growth and rental return perspective. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yep. That's it.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've now spent 6 months given up weekends driving around. Mind you, how many properties would you be able to see on your own in a weekend?
Not many, not many, because
No. So we're talking three or four, or what are we talking here?
3 or 4. Because what we did was we actually contacted the developers, and they're very busy people as well, so it's quite
Yes.
hard to get the time with them. So yeah, 3 4
Yep.
properties a week.
Wow. Okay. So you really, and look, that's probably a lot compared to what most people would see going forwards. And
Right.
but even then, 3 to 4, you're right. That doesn't give you much sense, especially when you say, okay, you're looking at one suburb today and another suburb tomorrow, and then another suburb next week, right? It seems like it can be very much like you're driving around blind. not just kind of guessing and hoping that, hey, we strike it lucky. Okay.
That's right.
So yeah, all right. So you've gone through that process, 6 months, still a long time, and definitely, for you, congratulations on not giving up, because I think a lot of people out there will just say, oh, it's just too hard. I'm never going to bother in investing. So at this stage, you've now reached a point where you're like, I need some help.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And so when it comes to help, you go online. There are so many people out there who talk about what that they can help you. They can all help you get wealthy quickly.
Oh,
All of that. What sort of criteria did you have to choose the person who was going to help you?
great question. I did go through a lot of buyer's agent,
Mm-hmm.
especially the ones that I've listened to previously on the podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing for me, I think, was basically how I was going to be looked after.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was listening to all the podcasts, I was thinking to myself, okay, if I use their services, who is going to look after me?
Yes.
Is it going to be one person? Is it going to be a group of people? Is it going to be uh, uh, the owner of the company, or is it going to be someone
Yes.
else?
Yes.
And I guess that's where I came across you as well, Nero, because
Mm-hmm.
I was reading on your website, and you say you don't take many clients per month, and then
Mm-hmm.
it was actually
Mm-hmm.
that was going to look after after the clients. There's
Yes.
so many buyers agents out there where they train new staff, and they're trying to grow their company, and
Yes.
I feel like the services that I get from them might not represent the values of the original creators, if that kind of
Got
makes
it.
sense.
Yes.
On the other
Absolutely.
Yeah, on the other hand, Investment Rise, is run by you, by
Mm-hmm.
Nero. So
Yes.
that was the most important thing for me. Basically, I wanted to be looked after, and I wanted
Yes.
to get the service that really represents the core values of the company. And I think, and I saw your website. It seems like it was you running the company, and it's you that will bring these values to clients.
Correct. And so, look, very much, I can see why you'd want to go down that path. I think the other thing with investing in property is it's not just about buying the property, right? It's, you're going to have decisions or questions rather afterwards. And you want to ensure that you can contact the person who's helped you get the property, that they're still with the company, right? They
Mm.
haven't gone somewhere or whatever else, from that perspective. So I can see why you made that decision. Okay, so you've chosen to work with us. Fantastic. Um, Tell the audience, if you don't mind, a little bit about sort of what the experience was. How did you feel in terms of the data that was shared with you to show you which areas to invest in? Because I guess that was a big question you still were struggling to answer, despite 6 months. And knowing you like I do, when you say you study something intensely, you studied it intensely, right? If you was in a university exam, you would have aced it. So you would have definitely done the work. So after 6 months, still not having answered probably the primary question of where to buy and why, how did you then feel in terms of how we addressed that question, the data points? Share a bit about that, please.
Great. Just before I answer that question, I just
Yeah.
wanted to say I still remember our initial call, Nero.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
was a 30-minute free consultation,
Yes.
and immediately I was drawn in to what you were going to offer me, because I remember that initial conversation. You really listened. You really listened to what I needed,
Mm-hmm.
and I just felt like, yes, that's it. This is the person that's going to help me succeed in my investment goal. So that I just wanted to mention that as well.
Well, thank you. And I think that hopefully that gives anyone listening as well just a sense of confidence that there is no pressure if someone calls in. It's very much about understanding whether we can help you. And of course, as I say on our website, if I don't think I can help someone, I'll let you know, and I'm very upfront about that. So no, thank you for sharing that, Peter. But yeah, let us know what did you think then about how we address the question of where to buy and why.
Yep. So initially, like I said, I was thinking about investing in areas that I was confident with. But
Hmm.
I remember that you suggested, hey, Peter, why not invest interstate, where the property prices are cheaper,
Mm.
and you get you where you can get like uh, you know, because at that time I was also thinking about, whether I should buy apartments or whether I should
Mm.
buy a house.
Mm.
And as you know, houses in Brisbane, the prices have just gone, through the
Go
roof,
nuts. Correct.
gone
Yep.
nuts. So
Yeah.
you suggested, why not, invest in interstate,
Mm.
how where houses in Brisbane can cost you millions. In
Mm.
other states, you can get it for 400, 500K.
Mm. Mm.
And that just kind of blew my mind, because I would never have known that. Because
Okay.
I don't think on the weekends, I don't think I'm that committed to drive all the way up to Cairns or Townsville to check the houses. I wasn't, even though I was committed, I don't think I was that committed.
And I think that's a little unrealistic, right? Because how much
Yeah.
knowledge can you get from visiting a large regional area, or even another capital city, in just a weekend, right?
Mm,
How do you know the demographics and everything else? Again, it then becomes a bit of a gut feel, guess,
mm,
sort of, do I feel good about it? And as most investors do, they just end up winging it, right? And if they get lucky, fantastic. But as we just said, property investing is not something you want to rely on just pure luck about,
mm,
right? Okay.
yes.
So we're starting to look now at areas outside of where you live. Okay. And for many people, that immediately freaks them out because they can't drive past the property to see it every weekend. And all the fears come up, what happens if someone damages my property, or
Mm.
who are the people who are renting there? I don't know who, Bob and Jane are, who are renting the property, and all those sorts of questions. So how did you feel about buying a property outside of where you actually lived, and the support that you got to address some of these fears that you obviously had as well?
So I think the first thing that you need to understand about property investment is you need to be a bit open-minded as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, a lot of people get freaked out thinking about investing in areas that they have never even heard of.
Yep. Yep.
But I think with your data, Niro, with your
Mm-hmm.
expertise, you
Mm-hmm.
convinced me that you have the data to
Yes.
suggest that, these areas will grow in value,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which will give you, your equity for future properties.
Mm-hmm.
So that confidence really came from you. You
Okay.
when you presented the data, you clearly stated how these areas are going to grow in the future in terms of, the demographics and the infrastructure, the future plans in that area. So all of those data that you presented really gave me the confidence to say, hey, let's do this. I'm confident that this is a good idea, and I can see how this can play out, and help
Good.
my future properties.
Fantastic. So okay, and so with data is data, right? Data can be overwhelming. Data still has to be interpreted, and many you can make the wrong conclusion from the right data. So it sounds like the data that was presented to you was presented in a format that you felt was thorough, because I said, you're no, it's not as if this is new to you. You've done a lot of reading, a lot of study, so you would have had pretty high expectations. So it sounds like the data was pretty thorough, but still simple enough to understand and paint a picture of what the future could look like.
Exactly. That's correct.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, good. All right. So here we have now data, and I know that I presented sort of a few different areas around the country, because there are 15,000 suburbs around Australia, and so
Yeah.
it's not about, oh, here's just one area and this is the only area you should invest in. I think that's a bit silly. We presented to you, I think it was 3 or 4 areas nationwide. How did you go about then choosing the areas? What sort of feedback did you get from me to kind of say, okay, well, this is the right area for you to invest in? Well, you don't need to share where you invested in, but more importantly, how did you go about that decision-making process?
Yep. Good question. So I think that's another important step of property investment as well. Now that I've
Mm,
got all the options, all the possible options, the next step would be selecting which one to really focus on.
mm,
And the thing that I liked about what you did, Nero, was you listened to my needs, you listened
mm-hmm,
to what I was trying to achieve, and you
mm-hmm.
recommended me a suburb that you think would really achieve my goal.
Yep,
And
yep.
I feel like if I had gone elsewhere, they might have just said, hey, you just pick one. I don't care which one. Just go with whatever you want. But for you,
Yeah.
Nero, you always responded to my needs, if that kind of makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Because again, what I always tell clients is, yes, you want to rely on data 100%, but you still need to be able to sleep at night, right? So, it's a big decision and you've got to feel comfortable that you are with the right team and you're making the right decision for you, right? And so, okay, so we've decided now where we're going to buy. That's a big step that most people don't even get to, right? But there are still further steps along the way. Okay, so now we need to find the properties. Okay, and we had an interesting experience with the properties, which I'd love for you to sort of go into. But initially, how did you feel about us finding the properties? Were you just given one and said this is the only one? Were you kept informed? What was the property selection process like for you, Peter?
You presented many properties, I believe, Nero, and throughout the whole process, I was really excited to see each one, because I had never thought that I would actually own an actual house.
Yes.
Because initially in my mind, I was thinking apartment, townhouses, but here we are. You presented me with properties, four house bedrooms.
Yes, 4-bedroom houses, absolutely. Yes, correct. Okay,
sorry, you go, Nero.
No, absolutely. So I was going to say, we're looking at these houses, and I remember then we found one that we liked, and we negotiated a great price. The price was good. The location was great. The property was structurally sound, but then there was an unexpected last-minute obstacle. Right? Why don't you share a little bit about what that was, and then what we decided to do as a result?
So I was so excited when we actually had our first Zoom inspection of the property. I was looking forward to seeing, how my investment is going to look like. Unfortunately, it didn't go as planned, because even though like you said, Nero, the structurally the building was fine. The main issue were the tenants.
Yep.
When we had the Zoom inspection, every single corner of the room had some sort of problem. It was either there was a scratch, it was dirty. I believe there were even ants on the floor or something. It was even wet. There was water on the floor as well.
Yes.
And things just got worse. When we went to the backyard, there was a huge dog that was damaging the structure of the house. It was digging in the corners of the house. So it didn't go as planned.
No, and I think that's it's very important to realize that a lot of people are buying properties sight unseen, right? They're going online, they're seeing some photos, they may be getting the real estate agent, the selling agent to send them a video walkthrough, which is fine for an initial, idea of the property. But you want to make sure that you're having someone on your side, whether you personally or someone on your side, look at the property, because you don't know what's being kept from you. And in this case, what happened, which was really strange, was that the tenants were just really trashing the property. And the poor owner of that property, the seller, didn't know, because their property manager wasn't telling them. Right. So nobody knew until we turned up, and it was horrible. Right. And I remember chatting to you and saying, look, well, here are the options. We could potentially get them to leave because they were in breach, and get the property vacant possession. But the risk was we don't know what we were missing because the property was so cluttered. And so I wasn't happy with that particular property for you, purely because even though everything else stacked up on numbers, it was great. Rental return was fantastic. The growth potential of the area was great. We didn't know if you were going to be hit by an unexpected 10 grand bill, 4 weeks after settlement. Right. And so that's where, when we looked at the risks and the downside, I recommended we actually pull you out and look for another property. We got your deposit back as well. And then we just moved on. So hopefully that would have, I'm guessing though, initially that would have felt a little disappointing because
Mm,
yes, this is all very data driven, etc. But as you said, here you're buying a house, you're becoming an investor,
mm.
and we were so close, and it was the last step
Yes.
really before we go unconditional. We were securing the property, and I remember you saying, Niro, what's your call? And
Mm,
we were at a situation where if I had told you, look, it's fine, you would have
mm,
gone ahead with that
yeah,
property, right?
mm,
But what
mm.
did I tell you?
Let's pull out, Peter. I don't think this is
Yeah.
gonna work.
Mm, correct.
And
Absolutely, right? Because
I'm really glad that you did as well, Nero.
it's
Really
an absolute pleasure because you see, when you hire someone to find the property for you, it's not just about the data, it's not just about the negotiation, it's
mm,
also about having a duty of care to say, well, what are the risks that this client is taking on, right? And
mm,
for me, I just felt that, look, everything could have been fine, we don't know. But
mm,
that's the key question. We didn't know. And we should never be buying a property where there's something important that we don't know, right?
mm,
So
yeah,
we pulled you out of that property. Yes, as disappointing as it was in the short term, you could definitely see the reasons why we were doing it. And then we moved on. We found you another property. And how did you feel about that one?
the second time round, I actually felt better than the first time because,
Mm,
like you said, after we pulled out of the first investment property, I thought, wow, Nero really cares about my interests. He really does want me to succeed. So I thought, I fully trust you. Um,
mm,
and I was even more excited. I felt, wow, how lucky am I to have gone through, this twice already. So I've got the experience now. So I felt more
yes.
confident second time round, actually.
Fantastic. Well, look,
Yeah.
thank you. And so, we ended up finding a property that was just phenomenal, right? In terms of the quality of the property, the location, the price versus rental returns was awesome. It's in a location that I really like, which is a location that's being gentrified. So, it's higher socioeconomic people moving into the area, more spending money, driving prices up. We've now recently settled on the property, and
Yeah.
you're a property owner, so yeah, so congratulations,
Thank you.
Peter. You've gone through the process, and similar properties are already selling for a little bit more than what we bought for you, so you're already well and truly ahead. It sounds like yes, it was a longer process, but you always felt supported every step of the way. Is that fair to say?
Indeed, every step of the way. You answered all of my questions, all of my emails,
Yeah,
really promptly as well. So thank you
good.
so much for that.
No, it was an absolute pleasure, Peter. I think really again, thank you for coming, on this podcast to just share your experience, because there are so many other investors, and look, I have many clients who are onto their third property, their fifth property, but sometimes that's hard to relate to them, and so that's why I like to get someone like yourself, a first time investor, but not just someone and any kind of ordinary first time investor. You're someone who, as I said at the start, spent so long doing your study, your research, your due diligence to see if you could make this happen on your own. And then when you realize, oh, hold on, there are a lot of things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and I think that's the key thing. You then decide look for some professional help. Kudos to you for doing that, and I'm certainly honored that you chose me, and we've had a great experience together, Peter. So I think it's fantastic that you are doing so well. I know we're already putting in plans for number two. How does that work? When are you ready for that? Because again, property investing is not a one-time event. It's a journey, right? And every property should be a stepping stone to the next one. And that's something that that I'm very, very focused on. So we need to look for not just the capital growth, but the rental growth as well, to ensure that you can then use this property to buy your second one whenever your plan suggests as well. So Peter, it's been a pleasure, working with you. Thank you so much for coming on this call. Thank you so much for your 5-star Google review as well. That was just fantastic, Peter. Was there anything, any last thoughts or comments you wanted to share before we wrap up, Peter?
I just wanted to say that you are really a hidden gem, Nero. You know, I think
Thank you.
you really do care about your clients and
Hmm.
take, you know, you have their interest at heart. That's the most important thing. And I would encourage anyone out there who's, you know, trying to invest in property just like I was to reach out to Nero. I 100% guarantee that he'll be able to help you.
Hi, it's Niro here. And look, I just want to clarify something Peter said. I actually can't guarantee that I can help you. I don't know anything about you yet. I don't know if we're even a good fit for each other. But if you want to find out how we might be able to help you get the kind of results that Peter got, then check out the description below. You'll see, first of all, a link to get a copy of my book, the digital version and audio version, totally for free, that will go through in detail how we find locations around Australia that are set to outperform the national average when it comes to capital growth, while still getting you strong rental returns. And secondly, if you want, you can also book a complimentary 30-minute Zoom consultation with me personally to find out if we're a good fit. Either way, thanks for watching.